One, and we are recording with Mr. Donald Jeffries on Tuesday, November 12th, 2024 at 12:05 p.m. Eastern Time. You've been on here once before. We talked about your book, American Memory Hole, the link to which is in the description. I highly recommend it. It does have some newer stuff, I think, as we talked about last time, about the Kennedy assassination that I didn't know. And you had brought up last time, and it's the idea that you don't completely, I don't know what the right, because I don't want it to sound in any way like derogatory. You don't necessarily buy into to Trump in its entirety, and I think that I
Yeah.
voted for him. I've voted back and forth. I voted for Obama, then Romney, then Bernie in the primaries, then Trump, and then Trump again. But I do think that there is truly no drawbacks to keeping a persistently skeptical mind. Always. I mean, you just always do that. And, some people don't like that idea. That's fine. But I think it's important to look at everyone, including this guy, and go, listen, he was friends with the Clintons. He did know Epstein. He is a multi-billionaire. New York construction, that's not exactly squeaky clean. That's notoriously, mob ridden. You also don't get into the presidency without making deals with people, intelligence communities, banks, corporations, defense contractors, geopolitical gain, natural resource extraction. So, although I do like him and I voted for him, I think it is extremely important to never put anyone on a pedestal of, I mean, other than like your dog, put someone on like a pedestal of just unchallengeable virtue. No one should do that. And nobody listening should do that to me. You should watch my podcast and every day go, is he a Fed? Like that's a good way
Mhm.
to go about life. It keeps you, I mean, not to be cliche, it keeps you constantly trusting but verifying. So real quick, if you want, introduce yourself. Again, guys, the book is in the description. And then well, yeah, let's jump into it. Miss Jeffries,
Yeah,
you
well, again, it's Don Jeffries. I've been around down these rabbit holes. Oh, it says my internet connection is unstable.
you're
Hopefully,
good.
so I don't know what's
You're
going on.
you're good. I can hear
Um,
you, so that's
I've
fine.
been, I was awake in the as, okay. I was awake in the mid 1970s as a teenager. I've been awake since then. So when it wasn't cool. So I've been down these rabbit holes for a long time. I am very skeptical of Trump. For instance, that I was excited over his unexpected landslide victory. I thought that was really cool, and I wanted to see the reaction. The reaction was a little muted. I was actually a little disappointed. I expected to see people in the streets and screaming and all that stuff. I didn't really see a whole lot of that other than TikTok. You guys, the young guys, I guess you're going to be having to deal with the no sex thing because the young white women on TikTok are saying no more sex. So I guess you got that going for you. But other than that, I haven't seen too much reaction. And but as I said, the big tell will be his appointment. His first few appointments, their Secretary of State. You're sending a clear message to your supporters that this is going to be what I call Trumpenstein again. This is going to be Act Two. It's exactly what he did the first time. His national security advisor he named is a basically younger, quieter version of John Bolton. His name is Mike Waltz. He's one of the biggest warmongers in Congress. This guy he was pushing the Biden administration for not doing enough to help Ukraine. Now, that's a strange appointment for somebody who has openly said, we're going to end the war in Ukraine and has been skeptical of it and is surrounding himself with people like Bobby Kennedy, Tulsi Gabbard, Vivek Ramaswamy, who are all preaching peace. I haven't heard them named anything yet. In fact, and then his chief of staff, Lori Giles, I think her name is.
Susan.
She's a Susie Wiles. That's it, Susie Wiles. She is a former Pfizer lobbyist. She has ties to Mitt Romney and all the rhinos going way back. And this again, this is she's tied to Gilead, which produced remdesivir and things like that. So what is RFK Jr. that selection? I mean, but then look at RFK Jr. You've had his anonymous members of his Trump transition team are obviously trying to throw him under the bus because they're putting out stories in the media that he may not pass a security clearance to get an appointment. They're clearly paving the way. This guy's not going to be named to anything. It's a big lie. they may give him a ceremonial post behind the scenes that he won't pay attention to. I thought maybe, Tulsi Gabbard would have been a much better pick for Secretary of State. But no, he goes with Marco Rubio, who again is one of the biggest rhinos in the Senate. And he represents all that's wrong with the Republican Party, and that's the establishment that supposedly hates Trump. So he makes him his right-hand man as Secretary of State. So this is what I'm talking about. And Elsie Stefanik as his UN ambassador. She's better than Nikki Haley. But she voted for aid to Ukraine several times. The last time she didn't, and she's a huge Zionist, and all these people are. And so far it just I said I'm a little shocked because especially the Rubio appointment because I didn't think he'd be that blatant, and he wanted to name Pompeo again too. You can tell he wanted to, but he got a little blowback, and he said no Pompeo or Nikki Haley. But is Marco Rubio that much better? I don't. So far, I think you judge you have to judge Trump on his actions, not his rhetoric. I told that people that the first time. He talks a good game. He still does. This guy Holman, who he named as his border czar, he sounds great. He sounds like he's really going to be a deportee. But people forget he was the director of ICE during Trump's first 2 years. There were no deportations then when Trump was promising them. So color me skeptical about that. So far, unless he names Tulsi Gabbard Secretary of Defense and RFK Jr. does become HHS Secretary, Vivek for Attorney General or something, I'd love to see RFK Jr. as Attorney General, just like his father, but I don't see that happening. I think his Attorney General, which would be a crucial position. I think he's already talked about Mike Lee of Utah Senator, which I don't know. I guess he's a slightly better than a rhino, but to me, he's very much like Jeff Sessions as first attorney general. I don't think he'll do anything really. RFK Jr. would send a message, but so I don't know. That's my take so far. I'm writing a Substack about it, and as more appointees come in, I'll be updating it. But so far, I really, I, I I'm looking and I say I want to like his, but I don't see any real outsiders. Even if you look at the so-called outsiders like Susie, chief of staff, she's not an outsider. I mean, she goes back to Mitt Romney, goes back to the Bush administration. She's been in these rhino positions for a long time. Now she's been loyal to him for a while and running his campaign. But again, I don't see how he's going to get through this radical agenda when he's surrounding himself once again with a bunch of rhinos.
The women that are saying that not having sex, I mean, I think the joke is, I think most guys are like, dude, I haven't been laid in years. Like, screw it, go for it, go for it. But like,
Yeah, I
I
don't. Yeah,
do,
exactly.
yeah, I do think it's important what you're saying, and again, just my own thoughts are not that you asked, but my own thoughts are that it will never be perfect. I think the people that are, the people that hated Kamala but said they weren't voting for Trump because he's not X, I get it. There are, the logic of the lesser of two evils, but there's also kind of the whole like grow up. This is not you, but just like, grow up. This is the world we live in, not just American politics. Like that's life. Life is, oh, your dad didn't hug you enough. It's like, yeah, but that's life. Some people got raped by their dad. Some people didn't have a dad. Like, go for it. So that's also just life of you're never gonna have the perfect candidate with zero flaws who, yeah, if you ever do see that person, that's the Antichrist and you should run. But I do think that is fair to critique it because it is, the election's over. He did win. And to me, it's not that us having this discussion isn't going to sway people to not vote for him. And it's fine to immediately start dissecting it and going, well, what really is going to happen, right? I mean, he only has been quote unquote president-elect, although not technically, but you get what I'm saying. For only, I mean, 6 days. Today would be 7. So it's fair to look at these things and go, well, what happened the first time? Why didn't we get everything we wanted? Or, at least to a decent degree of what we wanted. And, he has a term under his belt. I would hope that he has learned something. But what you don't want to do is just immediately get infected because there are different ways you don't have to cheat and steal an election. You don't have to pull a Kennedy and blow your head off. There are different ways to essentially neuter somebody's presidency. I mean, the botched burglary to get Nixon out. You can gridlock it. You absolutely can. That it was designed to be gridlocked. You can absolutely do that. And, if you're appointing all these people, like, what are you really doing? And I think you're right. Actions speak louder than words. Now, again, who knows? It's also, I'm 34 with a biology degree and I do a podcast. I have no idea what it's like to run the most powerful nation on the planet. It might be something where, yeah, if I'm 78 and I'm in office, I might look back in time at me and be like, listen, shithead, like, you got to make deals. No one likes it. It's a series of compromises. And I might go, oh, okay, yeah. So it might be that. But if I'm going to extend that understanding, then I also have to understand extend it to every president before it, Kamala and Biden or Obama. I have to go, well, where's the reasonable, hey man, it's a series of compromises. So, and then my initial reflex is, no, I don't want to extend that to Bush and Cheney. I look at them and I go, they're demons from hell. Okay. Well, then you have to hold Trump's feet to that same fire. So what would be then, so as not to get lost in
Yeah.
names, what
Okay.
would then be actions that for you would signal um it will be different? Not that it will be perfect, but that it will be different this time. What actions would it be? Not
Well,
just
certainly,
appointees, but
for instance, I
actual,
don't think.
yeah. Sorry.
Well, yeah, I certainly want to see the actions, and he's promised so much. He's promised maybe more this time than he did the first time. But again, he's talking about lots of deportations. I'll believe that when I see it. He's talking about getting out of getting us out of the Ukraine and imbroglio again. But he's surrounding himself with people that want to stay there. So I think you have to look at you don't want a chief of staff, for instance. You see what happened to us first. You have people like John Kelly and the other people that work for him. They came out and become vicious anti-Trumpers, but they were bad choices to begin with. They were rhinos, and he picked them inexplicably. So you have a guy like this, you have a woman like this, Susie, who is a loyalist, but do you really want a chief of staff that Jeb Bush? Jeb Bush came out and said it was a great choice. Is that you? Are you trying to please Jeb Bush
Yeah.
or the MAG people?
Low energy Jeb.
Yeah, and that's what I'm sure. Yeah, and I'm sure Jeb Bush probably thinks that Marco Rubio was a great choice too. So, if you, what do the MAGA people think? Do
Yeah.
they like any of these choices? It'd be interesting to watch Alex Jones because he's basically a cheerleader for the Trump administration. Donald Trump Jr. suggested Alex Jones as a press secretary. Now that would at least be entertaining. That would be
That would
great.
be the
But
funniest thing on the
it'd be
planet.
incredible. Yeah,
That
it'd
would
be great. But
legitimately,
yeah, that would, wouldn't it? But I mean, I think, why not Roger Stone for chief of staff? Right? Roger Stone is it's not Roger Stone is tied to me because he wrote the forward to Hidden History, which is by far my best-selling book. But I have no real ties to him. But and he's already making excuses, claiming that the chief of staff it wasn't a Pfizer. And again, they're in damage control already, and they had to do that for 4 years before. They haven't called it 4D chess yet, but they will eventually. They'll do something like that because they have to explain his inexplicable actions when he says one thing and does the complete opposite. So I thought he'd be a little different. Maybe he still will if he's. I don't if he surrounds himself with all these people and still does some good things, it doesn't matter. It's fine. But so far, also again, you should see Roger Stone, Bannon, Flynn. Not that I love those guys at all, but they should be in positions of prominence in his administration. They should be his advisors, not some guy that is criticizing Biden for not being supportive enough of Ukraine. Why is that your national? The exact same thing that Bolton did.
yeah.
So you don't want that. An attorney general is crucial. That's why I said RFK Jr. would send a huge message as attorney general. Hey, just like his dad, the second candidate, where it's going to be different because he's like a crusader.
Hmm.
But I think they're purposely keeping him out. Tulsi Gabbard as Secretary of State would have been a good, a very good optics because she's been very, very much critical of the military-industrial complex, and she's very much for peace. So far, all his choices have been supportive of the military-industrial complex. There's no indication there, that he's other than the border czar Holman again, who talks a big deal about deportation. Maybe he'll do it this time. His assistant, chief of staff is Stephen Miller, who is one of the more outspoken uh, anti-illegal immigration voices in the first administration. So, maybe he'll get something. Having, why I call it the Trumpenstein Project, that's what I call it. I came up with that name just for this. This is why I came up with it because I've never seen a politician ever. They all break promises, but this guy makes so many promises. And he always does, as I said before, he always snubs his nose or sticks his finger in the eye of his base. Every time when he actually does something, he never does what he says. He never has. And I don't think he's going to do it now. And here he's already showing it with these choices. He'll say, what a great choice, little Marco Rubio, maybe when he ridiculed him and everything. These are, I don't know. I don't mean to be so black pilled and,
No.
maybe he'll come up with a few good choices if he, but, it's just so far the Rubio choice really is like the icing on the cake. It's like, come on, really, Marco Rubio? I mean, that's just ridiculous. You can't, he's Mr. Rhino, and the rhinos hate him. So, and then, of course, if you said about gridlock, they're already gearing up the way these games are playing. They're already gearing it. Trump will have a built-in excuse why he can't political figures in the history of the world that the Republicans can't help. The Republican voters can't stop reelecting him for some reason. Why do you reelect these rhinos? They continue to reelect them, and the Republican senators who they also elect to the House, these are the guys they want to lead them. They want people who are rhinos to lead them. So McConnell's stepping down finally. So what happens? He puts three candidates up. Two of them are the worst rhinos imaginable. Was it Corwin and Thune, I think. These are terrible anti-Trumpers. So they will block anything Trump tries to do, just like McConnell did. The other guy, Lee, is I think is Lee. Is it Lee? Yeah, no, Scott from Florida, Rick Scott from Florida. He's okay. He seems to see, so he would be the best of that sorry bunch, but I don't think he'll get in. But why not Rand Paul? Why isn't somebody that's one of the better ones? Why don't they run for Senate Majority Leader? I don't understand it. It's always a terrible rhino. And if he gets any of these people, including Scott, I don't think Scott will be that accommodating to him. I think he may be like Mike Johnson, who again, you have a Speaker of the House if they maintain control of there, who is already played games with the Democrats and has shown he's no kind of MAGA person. So I think he'll have a built-in excuse, even though he has both houses of Congress, he really doesn't have them because the rhinos still rule there. And why not? What he named, why doesn't he named Kristi Noem as Director of Homeland Security? Why not Matt Gaetz? Why isn't Matt Gaetz there? That would be a signal to his base. Hey, I'm gonna even Marjorie Taylor Greene, somebody that's more outspoken
Hmm.
that shows okay, at least we're gonna Thomas Massey, of course, would be my favorite choice, but he's not going to do Massey because everybody there's a Zionist and Massey's not. So I don't know. We'll see what happens, but certainly I'm happy he won for the entertainment value. But I don't know. I hope it's not Trumpenstein Part Two.
Yeah, no, I don't think you're being blackpilling. And, people listening might think you are. I don't think you are. I think you're just being fairly critical. To me, I kind of have like a one thing and one thing only, and it's anything else past that's a bonus. Just have some form of election or voting reform. You can't have it. Did happen again in Wisconsin where there's the vertical spike at three. That can't be a fucking thing going forward. Or if it is, then these 4 years will never. In 4 years, this won't matter. So he got through one. I don't know how he did. Maybe it really was too big to rig, but that is to me that is the furthest upstream from everything. Is everything else comes down to you have to establish some form of same day paper ballots only ID present voting reform. That's the most he could do for the country. Above all, there will always be wars, there will always be foreign entanglements and regulation this and health that, and I get that. If you want to truly do the best good for the most number of people for the longest number of years, you would go out of your way to establish some, and it'll be corrupted eventually. But what you hope to do is kick that can down the road as far as you can. And as to all these other neocons and Zionists, you have some people one I hate the most is people going, well, it's optics. Optics don't matter anymore. They shot him in the fucking face in July in front of his family. Truly, optics don't matter anymore. He's 78 years old. It's his second term. The optics do not matter anymore. That is not even an argument, and I don't ever want to hear anyone say that again. The 4D chess thing also has to fucking go because it's not. It's not 4D chess, all right? It's if they're making a bad decision, they deserve to be given hell about it. And so yeah, all of this it is a little. I mean, I'm willing to wait and see. I'm willing. I and I. It, ultimately, what it comes down to is this: is it might be what I said earlier that it's a series of compromises at that level, and that's fine if it is. But that also means I have to extend that understanding to every other president, and I can't go Biden started a quagmire in Ukraine. I have to then say, and this is for my own personal growth. Hey, it's a series of compromises, and that's how he got into office. So that might be the case, in which case, Biden wasn't the worst and Trump won't be the best. Because if it truly is just an interconnected series of Chinese finger traps and, grinding gears, then there's
Mhm.
really the machine's going to just kind of trudge on. So I don't know.
No, exactly. And I think that, you have to look at, you expect, you go back to Kennedy, obviously my favorite president, JFK, and even JFK, he surrounded himself with people, CFR people, and people that I think he was told he had to. But he had what they call the Irish Mafia. He had loyalists around, and of course, he had, most importantly, he had his brother as Attorney General. So he had that. He was surrounded by lots of bad people that he was forced, because the system does force you to put some of these people in. But if Trump is the only president during his first term. Jimmy Carter had the Irish Mafia. I mean, the Georgia Mafia. Kennedy had the Irish Mafia. Uh, Trump had nobody. He didn't, like I said, he didn't have Roger Stone. He had banned him briefly, not that long. He didn't have it, and that's what's amazing about Trump. He doesn't have, and I don't know if it's because he gets in so many arguments with people, he doesn't keep friends, but he doesn't have like longtime friends around him in positions that can advise him. He has his horrible son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who's involved again, who is a Democrat, and he was instrumental. Why isn't Donald Trump Jr. there?
Hmm.
Why isn't Donald Trump Jr. an advisor? That would be the logical person. Donald Trump Jr. sounds better than his father most of the time. In fact, he's the one that suggested Alex Jones as press secretary. So I would like to see him have some input. Instead, it's Jared Kushner again. I just don't understand. I don't think you can explain that innocently. And I think I can't help but believe, because basically, if he tries any of these things, Kushner and his daughter, more importantly, are going to be against it. And she's going to say, Daddy, don't do that, which is what she did. She urged him to bomb Syria the first time, first administration, supposedly, again, because she's basically talking like a Democrat. Why is he listening to them and not Donald Trump? I mean, not Donald Trump Jr. or Eric Trump. Those are the people he should be listening to. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I'll be the first one when he does something right. I'll be the first one to admit it. But so far, I'm disappointed as someone who's a Kennedy fanboy. I admit it. I'm really interested in RFK Jr. And he should be thanking RFK Jr. because the reason I think he had the kind of victory he had was because RFK Jr. had 10% of the vote or something that he
Thousand
brought over
percent.
with him. Yeah. And so I think he owes the guy, and so at least, but I think at his heart, I think that was just, he was paying lip service to him. I don't think he agrees with. He said bad things about RFK Jr. before, earlier. So I don't think he agrees with what he's saying. He acted like he did on stage because he wanted his votes. He got his votes, and now what's happened? He doesn't seem like he's interested anymore. Instead, the Trump transition team is anonymous sources are putting out stuff. They're talking about the bear in the park thing again, which I don't even understand. But why are they bringing that up to try to discredit him? It's the same thing the mainstream media does. So I think you're going to see that Tulsi Gabbard just being ignored. Vivek, maybe gets, I don't know, some kind of position or whatever. But so far, I thought it would be at least a little different. Maybe it still will be. But again, the so far, the Waltz especially, and then Marco Rubio as secretary, because basically the three most important positions in your administration are Attorney General, Secretary of State, and Secretary of Defense. One of them's already gone now to a ridiculous rhino and Marco Rubio. So he's again, if Jeb Bush was president, Marco Rubio would be probably the number one choice for Secretary of State. Why is he the number one choice for Donald Trump?
Yeah.
Makes no sense
No,
if
it's
he's going to
fucked.
be different. Yeah, it is. So we'll see. Secretary of Defense is almost it's not going to be Rand Paul or somebody like that, or Ron Paul if he's not too old. Somebody that would ensure that hey, we're going to scale things back and not look for war. It'll be a warmonger because that's all. That's so far that's all he has. And Attorney General, it will probably be like Sessions, who was good on some things, but was, pro police power, pro not exactly a civil liberties guy. I think you'll see somebody like that.
Yeah, he was obsessed with criminalizing weed. It's like, dude, that was
Yes,
a
yes, he
talking
was.
point 80 years ago. Like,
Yes,
he's like,
he
we got to
was.
get rid of the reefer. And it's like,
Yeah,
what? What? Are you coming out of like a black and white film? The reefer madness. It's like, so you did next,
exactly.
he's gonna start talking about Elvis and the moving hips. Like, will you shut
Yeah,
the fuck up? Like, yeah. So, I mean,
exactly.
I guess, I've already said, my thing would be voting reform. It might also be something that machinations, 4D chat, all this stuff, all of it's really only truly visible in hindsight. Biden sure ended the war in the Middle East, but you know, funded in the beginning of in an ongoing quagmire in Ukraine. Okay, so that's to me that's like that's you're in military industrial complex. I will give Biden credit for the CHIPS Act. And I know for most of my listeners are very conservative. Hey, credit where it's due. He's high tech or low nanometer fabrication uh facilities on US soil instead of just in Taiwan. You got to give credit where it just is, okay? And it's so if we're gonna say if he's responsible for Ukraine and for our investment there, you end one war, but you kind of start another. It's the same thing. We're still getting all the same contracts. So in the military industrial complex's
Right.
eyes, we're still at war. But then he did chips. I'm like, okay, well then you have to give that. So the same thing, it might, and it's not a good answer because it means we'd have to wait. Ultimately, I think it will just be what do we see in 4 years? You have to say, are we in nine new wars or are we
Right.
not? Are we, did the economy grow or did it not?
Yeah.
And
Well,
I
I
think
think
that's really all you can look at is it's kind of like the satellite view. It's like, yeah, it's what is the meta pattern of an administration?
Well, I think the economy probably will grow. I don't have any doubt about that. But who's it growing for, and who's it benefiting? And but I think that Trump talking about ending the war in Ukraine was a good thing. But again, he's not surrounding himself with people that believe that. They all want the war in Ukraine and they want to just get more money. But even if he does, let's say he succeeds in doing that, and he thinks he can end the war or whatever, and he talked to Putin or whatever. And so that'd be great. Okay, if he can do that, wonderful. But as you said, you started another war because he's surrounding himself with people who were violently anti-Iran, and they're
Mhm.
all Zionists. They all want war with Iran. So, that's what most of us are scared of is that he's going to, that they're going to force him to start a war with Iran. And again, this guy Waltz, his national security advisor, is certainly, you can't get much more pro-Zionist and anti-Iran than that guy. And Elsie Stefanik as well, the UN ambassador. She is nobody's more of a cheerleader for Israel than she is. So, she wants it. So, will that happen? I don't know. But I would like to see his number one issue has always been immigration, and I'm glad he started talking about it again because he kind of dropped it for a while. But he's really kind of locked into this deportation thing now. He's got this home and saying, yeah, we're going to deport whole families and all this stuff. And I think that's when you'll see probably if that if I can't believe it'll happen, but if anything like it happens, if they even attempt it, I think that's when you'll see the George Soros funded people out in the streets that you curiously don't see. Oddly, you haven't
No, you
seen it
don't.
yet. But,
You don't see
you know,
them the same way you did after 2016, where it was like the next day, and it was so
yeah,
clearly organized, right? Because they all had
yeah.
matching shirts and matching printed signs, and they all happened to happen organically in like nine cities at the same time. You don't see it this time. You have to wonder it because it's not that the funds don't exist. Both sides have war chests a mile deep. Why aren't they doing that this time? Is it because they don't think the people are going to buy it? It's kind of a they already ran that. It's not going to have the same punch. he's a felon, right? It's like you did that in 2016. We get it. He's a Nazi. He's a like no one cares, and it doesn't work. And you can't really. I mean, they will try, but you can't really pull the whole he's going to start World War III thing because we're well on our way. Um, why don't you think we see? Why don't we see the
Right.
the the riots and every? Are they saving up? Are they going fuck it? Wait till January?
Well, that's what I said. I mean, I'm not saying I'm disappointed, but the main reason that I wanted Trump to be president again was for the entertainment value. I want to see the response. I said, I'm going to watch it. You must see
Mhm.
TV. I even recorded The View the next day after. I said, well, I've never watched this stupid show in my life, but this has got to be great TV.
Yeah.
And it was disappointing. I mean, they were kind of somber, and I thought, maybe there'd be some cat fights on air or something. I don't know, maybe a shooting, who knows? But I thought that would be interesting at least. But so
Mhm.
far, I mean, they haven't acted any differently than when he wasn't president. I mean, they were always, attacking him and saying these things, but I thought they'd go nuts. And but
I don't,
so far, and
it's so
certainly, I thought the pussy hats would.
like
What's that?
you know watch the View to see if there's shooting. Just imagine like Joy Behar pulling out a
Yeah.
revolver and shooting Whoopi or something. What do you mean you don't think he's a
Yeah, yeah,
Nazi?
yeah.
Bam.
Exactly. Well, I mean, I don't know if I expected that, but I thought there would be some kind of entertainment value
Yeah.
there, and there hasn't been. And as you mentioned, it's been. I mean, they've taken this in a very surprisingly good way. They've been very incredibly good sports about it, which they're not known to be good sports, and they're. I find that hard to believe. Kamala Harris's, concession speech was very muted, diplomatic. I don't know. I thought, that you would see way more, mention of and there are, I think you have to explain away. I mean, I think it proves pretty much what we were saying about 2020, the fraud
Oh
there,
yeah.
but
No, it's yeah.
there's a missing 15 million votes or so. I mean, how did that many more people vote in 2020 than 2024 for both candidates? Because Trump got about the same votes, if not less. And Kamala Harris, we're told, is getting, 15, $18 million votes less than Biden. So where'd those people go? I mean, I don't, and the population has increased. There are more illegals voting. So not, the math doesn't make sense, but I don't expect the Democrats necessarily to open that hornet's nest. But I think that the response has been they're waiting, and if the deportations are going to be attempted, I think that's when you'll see the people in the street because that's this is something the hill they'll die on. So
Yeah.
this is an issue. I think you'll see them all out there. If he really attempts to round up and deport people that are here illegally, which of course needs to be done.
Yeah.
But and if he just does that, that would be a good thing. But I don't know. Will it cause a civil war? I don't know. But I think you'll definitely see those well-funded and well-organized demonstrations in that case.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of great meltdowns on Twitter, but it's more the
Yes.
individual. It's the occasional
Yeah.
individual who's I don't understand why you film yourself melting down, but I guess
Yeah. It's great.
it's some like drama club shit. But
Yeah.
you haven't seen. I guess that's a good point. Is you would see it. I mean, the two primary things you'd see is trying to wind down the war machine. That's the biggest one, right? That's why
Mhm.
Kennedy's head got blown off. But the next biggest would be back to my point about voting. This would what? How do you purge the voter rolls? One, you need voter ID, same day election
Right.
tallies, paper ballots. But what's the other huge one is you can't have 30 million people come in who just will vote for the people that brought them in. That's a good point. Is if it won't just be they're gonna oh you're racist like they're always gonna call you racist. But I mean that is the bread and butter for the fraud machine is 30 million illegals. I think you're right. That's you'll see the demon start screeching when you throw the holy water. So it's challenging the
Yeah.
war machine, but then that's the those are your foot soldiers for swelling the vote in a swing state or a swing city. That's a good point.
Absolutely.
It'll be that. Yeah.
I think so. And Trump is again one of the many promises he's made. He said something about maybe having a commission or something to study, the electoral process and vote fraud, which should be done. But again, I think he'll meet a lot of blowback on that. I mean, if he does any of these things, he's going to meet blowback. at
Sure.
all. I mean, I'm sure he's already, I don't think you'll hear, again, back to 2016, one of when I was saying the same kinds of things about his early appointments, and I was saying, God, they're all so awful. But one bright spot was RFK Jr. telling the media that, hey, we're going to have a commission to study the links between vaccines and autism. And Trump has named me the chairman. And I said, well, that's great.
Mm,
Fantastic. And what happened? It never came to be. A couple years later, RFK Jr. said they stopped answering my calls. They never had the commission. So will that happen to him again? Because Trump talked in that when he first went on stage and RFK Jr. endorsed him, he talked about the assassinations, and he said, it's basically Bobby, you study this stuff, and so as a tribute to him or something, I think he said he said I'm going to establish a commission to investigate presidential assassinations and assassination attempts. Yeah, that's a revolutionary thing. If he puts the right people on there, and if RFK Jr. is involved, I think you'll get some truth. I don't think you're going to hear anything more about that commission. You would.
mm,
I think that's going to be just like the 2016 commission. You didn't hear anything else about. Because again, these kinds of things are just because that would be Trump matching his rhetoric. Because he sounds like the ultimate outsider. He sounds like he's challenging the military-industrial complex and challenging everything. But so when he says great stuff about how the never-ending wars, we need to bring the troops home and stuff, well, you need to actually do that.
mm,
And you don't put people in positions like he's doing so far with people who obviously would never believe that and would think he was crazy for saying it. So they must know why would Mark Rubio, why would these guys want to serve with Trump, given all he said? You think they must know, okay, he's obviously not serious. He's not going to actually do that, or he wouldn't have appointed me. Right. And so I think that his national security advisor, I mean, Bolton, when he named Bolton back then, given all the stuff he had said about we need to stop these senseless wars, these no-win wars, Bolton has been for every one of those senseless no-win wars. No one's been a
mhm.
bigger cheerleader than that. And are we supposed to believe that Trump didn't know who he was? Are we supposed to believe that the first Attorney General, William Barr's father, first hired Jeffrey Epstein as a math
Yeah,
teacher
yeah,
at a private school, and then
yeah.
somehow he became a billionaire as a math teacher. I don't know the world's only billionaire math teacher, but so he goes
He's
back
the
to there. But
best ever.
yeah, and William Barr was also a longtime toady for the Bush crime family, and he was a character witness for Lon Horiuchi, who blew off Vicky Weaver's head at Ruby Ridge. So that's the kind of character that guy has. And are we supposed to believe that Trump didn't know any of this? And that's the guy he put in charge of draining the swamp. So that's why he's not talking about draining the swamp this time. Maybe he just
No.
gave that up. I don't know, but but it'll be interesting to see who his attorney general is. I've heard some names trotted out so far. They don't inspire a lot of confidence. Mike Lee, I think from Utah, was probably the best of a sorry lot. I don't know how good he would actually be, but again, I want to see RFK Jr. I want to see Vivek Ramaswamy. I want to see Tulsi Gabbard. I want to see some real outsiders in there. And so far, we're not seeing it.
Yeah. He can't claim because I mean there's no good explanation, right? It's either Trump didn't know who these guys are, so you're
Yeah.
claiming ignorance. What an idiot,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
and then you have to ask yourself, do you truly believe he doesn't know who they are? Absolutely not.
Mhm.
You don't have to like Trump. He's plugged in. He knows who these people are. So they have to say, well, then so what is the second reason? So it's not that he's an idiot or that he's ignorant. Why did he do this then? Is that he's compromised? Well, that's a bad explanation. Is it that he truly doesn't mean what he says about making America great again and securing the border? Or could it be that it's a series of Thomas Sowell, there are no solutions, there are only trade-offs. Well, if that's the case, you then have to look at everything and go, well, then it's all been a series of trade-offs and it's all been a series of solutions, in which case, all these presidents who you thought were the devil aren't actually the devil. Okay. To what you're saying about draining the swamp, I'd almost rather a more that's grandiose. I would almost rather them say in 4 years, we'll have enforced borders and election fraud will be down 90%. To me, that's so much more realistic and grounded in reality as opposed to we're gonna uproot all corruption and end all. It's like that's kind of cool. And yeah, we're gonna have flying cars and and we're
Mhm.
all gonna live forever and happily and unicorn. Like I'd much more rather a realistic like these are the two things I'm going to get done. This will be my legacy. Because that's much more pragmatic. And to me, that seems like somebody who means what they say. But if you come in and say, we're just going to fix everything, to me, that's the promise. That's the mirage. That's the shit that's the bait and switch for, communist revolutions. And that ends up with everyone against the wall and shot in the face. So I'd almost rather something much more grounded than drain the swamp. So you're going to end corruption. And I don't mean to be blackpilling. I would rather something more. We're gonna have a strong border, same day ballot counting, paper ballots, show your ID, and we're gonna reboot the Apollo program and go to Mars. I'd be like, I'll take it.
Yeah.
That's a win.
Yeah.
Like realistically, that's a win, right? And so, but who knows? I mean, I don't know. And you got to have some balls. It's your second term. You're 78 years old. They clearly
Absolutely.
tried to kill you. Like
Yep.
there's nothing like this is the game laid bare. There are no excuses.
Yeah.
First time you could say, "Hey, I didn't know how corrupt it really was."
Right.
You
Right.
could
Right.
say, "Hey, I was doing good," and then they released a bioweapon. You'd be like, "Well, hey,
Hmm.
okay, I have some sympathy for that." You're like, man, this shit really is fucked.
Hmm.
There is no excuse this time.
Nope.
You gotta go balls out. And so
Oh, and
now, yeah,
he is 78 years old, and he's not going to run again. So he doesn't have an excuse for political
there's
expediency.
nothing to run again
So
for. He can't run
yeah,
again.
exactly. So he has no excuse. He has both houses of Congress, I think, unless they steal the House, and they're still counting votes again because this great political process we have, and nobody questions it.
Do
I
not
mean, they're
question
counting
it.
slower.
Do not ever question it. It takes in a
Yeah,
normal functioning democracy, it takes 10 years to count a vote. Yeah.
yeah. Even though in the 1800s, no technology at all, they could come up with the result faster. So, but I think he doesn't have any excuses, and that's why again it's so disappointing to see a project that he's the Emmanuel Goldstein. 1984, Emmanuel Goldstein was the opposition leader. He was the one that the party hated. He was the one that was Big Brother's enemy. And so they got together every day for the 2 minute hate, they called it. And
Yeah.
his picture came on screen and they threw things at it and fought with each other and went nuts for 2 minutes. Trump is Emmanuel Goldstein 24/7, where the people, millions of people see his face and they go crazy. And you see the crazy women on TikTok going nuts, shaving their heads and all kinds of crazy stuff because Trump got elected. And that he was the fake opposition. And again, I think even though the millions of people that hated him weren't in on the act, and that's why I say here, the Muppet Project, and the millions of people that support him aren't in on it. They think he's legitimate, but at some point, you have to ask yourself, and they continue. I've argued with these people for so they'll come up with a long list of his achievements. I say, this is gobbledygook. It's one of Kamala Harris's word salads. Show me what he actually did. Did he said? Did he end birthright citizenship? No. Did he end sanctuary cities? No. Did he end DACA? No. Did he deport? He deported fewer people than Obama did. Most people don't know that. Look it up. He deported
Yeah.
fewer people during his 4 years. And yet now he keeps saying we had the best ever. We had the best, the strongest economy. Yeah, it was better than Biden's economy. It wasn't the strongest economy. Bill Clinton's economy, he had nothing to do with it, but the 90s economy was much better because of the dot-com boom. That's just ridiculous. Say it was had a better economy than the 1950s. I mean, but he says the reality at all. What did he actually do? Yeah, he riled everyone up. He caused everyone, millions of people to distrust the media, which is fake, which is controlled. So that's a good thing. And he did, ruffle a lot of feathers, which was entertaining. But ultimately, he got nothing done. He deported fewer people than Obama. Nothing changed. He didn't build an infrastructure program that he talked about he was going to do. And I don't hear him talking about that now. So, at some point, you have to ask yourself. Roger Stone told me way back when, because he was one of the first people to like my work, and that's why I wrote the forward to Hidden History. He contacted me and he told me about how great Trump was and how this is when he was just starting to run. And he said, I've known him for 30 years. He knows about all the conspiracies. You're going to love him. And I said, well, it's possible. Maybe somebody behind the scenes, a loose cannon billionaire, maybe he's seen all this stuff and he's made all his money. He's biding his time. So I expected to see something. But he just what is Trumpenstein? Trumpenstein, he he alludes to things. He makes people think like, for instance, he would tease Joe Scarborough about the death of his intern, Lori Klausutis, which is so he knows about that. He
Yeah.
knows that she was found dead in his office when he was a congressman and nobody investigated. He knows that. It's not like he's ever going to do anything. He just does it he's like a troll. He's an ultimate troll. But here he talked to Vince Foster, which of course I've investigated, and he uh, he mentioned one time, so a lot of people think he was murdered, a lot of strange stuff there. So he knows about it, like Roger Stone told me. So what does he do? His second Supreme Court nominee was Brett Kavanaugh, who led the cover up into Vince Foster's death for the Kenneth Starr investigation. He didn't know that. So that's Trump. That's Trumpenstein.
Yeah.
That's what he'll do. He does, the day of 9/11, he's telling everybody there it had to be explosions there and everything. He knows all this stuff.
Yeah.
But ultimately, when it comes to me, then he surrounds himself with Rudy Giuliani, who was one of the 9/11 cover-up artists. So that's why I call it the Trumpenstein Project, that the dichotomy between what he says and what he does is it's like nothing you've ever seen before, and you're still seeing it now. That's why I'm scared he's going to do the exact opposite of what he says, because that's what he did the first time, or mostly didn't do anything really. But his appointments again lead the audience to assume, because I voted for the guy, and I think he still is our he's as I said at the time when he was elected the first time, I said this is your last hope.
Yeah.
This is your absolute last hope. And he may not be much of a hope, but he's your last hope. And he's still tried it out there even now 8 years later. He's whether he's Emmanuel Goldstein or not, he's the face of the opposition. That's who you go to if you don't like what's going on. I mean, the million and what happens, I've said, after Trump is the most important thing, because you've got 70 million or more people that are awake to some degree to this corruption who voted for Trump. And you can't put that genie back in the bottle. I don't think you can ever get them to vote for rhinos again, but I don't know. Maybe you can. And the one I still think his best selection so far has been J.D. Vance, and I'm aware of J.D. Vance's background with Peter Thiel and stuff, but he was pretty good in the Senate, and he talks a good game still. He sounds good, so we'll see with that. But he needs more people like him.
The only way you could kind of get people to go back to bed, you'd have to create good times for like 20 years. You would need like
Yeah.
you'd need like 2 decades of 1990. I think you could get enough people to
Mhm.
kind of age out. You'd have me in 20 years. I'd be 54 and I'd be like, no, they're all rhinos. But you have enough new people that would be like, will you shut up? Everything's great. That's the only way to do, which in itself is like, man, I'm not even opposed to that. If the Illuminati's like, we need 20 years of Pax Americana, I'd be like, well, that's kind of
Hmm.
a win. 20 years of Pax Americana. Like
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah.
deal, we'll deal with waking back up in 20 years. It's that or and it's not a good answer, but I think the only again, so like the number of the amount the Overton window has shifted since the 2016 election is undeniably a good thing. And so that's where I would go is, 8 years ago, it'd be hard to foresee that. But since then, despite all the flaws of the first administration, I would say ultimately he didn't start a new war and the Overton window shifted dramatically. I would say those are two good things. I don't think we're
Hmm.
gonna be able
Yeah.
to truly give a grade uh on him being reelected probably till like 2025 or sorry, excuse me, 2029, which is a shit answer, but in 4 years
Yeah.
he'll have cycled through different sec defs and there'll be all the drama and the nonstop whatever, but in 5 years if we go, hey, economy grew this much, voter fraud is still there, but it's not nearly as bad. And he wound down shit in Ukraine. I would go, well, I would say it's good.
Sure. I mean, I think that I don't expect miracles from the guy at all.
No,
But
you
he just
can't.
it's a, he but he no he, and as I said, even if he had tried to do the stuff that he promised to do, he probably could. He would have encountered the same opposition. It is probably beyond the means of any one person, and that's why it's important when you have something like that, when you have power, like he had, and will have again, you surround yourself with comrades. You
Yeah.
surround yourself with allies, people that are on the same page as you. He appears to be doing what he did before, surrounding himself with people who don't agree. I said during the first administration, I would like to have a poll and see how many people in the Trump White House voted for him. I don't think very many did. And I don't think you'd say about any president ever. And I
Yeah.
think, maybe this will be a little better because he's hiring more loyal conservative Republicans who voted for him. But again, they don't have the MAGA type agenda, really. They're not MAGA people. So this is your. I said Trump was going to be the last Republican president. I don't know if the vote was legitimate here. I didn't think any Republican, let alone him, could win the popular vote in America 2.0, what I call in today's America. I still don't. And if I was a Democrat, I'd probably be questioning that because I know the demographics and I just don't know how that happened. That's amazing. But I guess it gives you some kind of hope, especially if they do deport a lot of people, that maybe we can have at least a crappy fake two-party system because
Yeah.
it was looking there like it was just going to be nothing but the Democrats. But I don't know. I've been at this long enough to know that, again, I don't expect anything out of it because these guys never deliver anything for the people. And that's, again, why I'm dubious that Trump will be able to
Mm.
do because obviously a mass deportation would be a great thing for this country, for the citizens. Uh, Scaling back the military industrial complex would be a great thing for this country. He wants to end the Department of Education. I think that'll get people out in the streets too. The teacher, I mean, is he going to be able to do that? That's going to cause a lot of opposition. I mean, these are very powerful people. And it's a great thing. He should, but will he be able to do it? I don't know. But so I hope he at least tries to do some of these things. But I don't know. I just look again who you surround yourself with, and it just to me, if you're gonna, because you're up against a monolithic thing, you're up against this deep state, this swamp, and so you want to put as many people around you as possible and they made it seem like he was this crazy renegade, this bull in a china shop. And then he'd have his own people, John Kelly and Bolton and people like that, who would publicly say things against him. Again, nothing you ever heard before in the history of presidential politics, where his own people would criticize him publicly. He did it over and over again. Will you see that this time? I don't know. I mean, if he attempts peace somewhere, you think Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, is going to be on board with that? He's never been on board with it before. This is a guy who loves war, so I don't know. We'll see. But Trump has changed politics forever. You can't imagine politics without Trump now. He's changed the political world, and there's no question it's more interesting with him because without him, what would it be? I don't even know what it would be. I can't even know there's some stupid rhino that would have run, Jeb Bush or somebody.
Yeah.
And so he has at least made it very interesting.
What you said about, and we'll kind of wrap it up with this is, when you don't expect miracles from the guy, nor should you. And I think that's maybe an observation on like the human condition. Be like, hey, it
Mhm.
is important. You got to be politically literate. You can't just put your head in the sand. That being said, the biggest changes in my life, do I keep hitting the gym? I've gone almost 10 months
Mhm.
without a drink. Do I keep staying sober? Do I keep working hard at the podcast, getting bigger guests, doing bigger
Mhm.
shows, showing up on time, show you with you, give it my all, be here. Those are the biggest changes in my life. Not now I get it, the one president could take you in a World War III, sure. The biggest changes in your life are your own, and you shouldn't put that on anyone. Not POTUS, not a rock star, not a whoever. Um, and then the second one I was going to say is, how did he win? I think for all of like the, people are tired of the woke shit, that's all fun and good. I think it's money. I think people want cheaper groceries. And that's, to me, that is the great equalizer. Deep down inside, all these other issues about involvement here or transgender parade there, none of that means anything if your wallet's thin and you can't pay your bills. That's the that's the great equalizer. You probably have a lot of
Mhm.
people that are lifelong Democrats that are going like, yeah, I track my monthly groceries and they're through the fucking roof. Whatever. I'll let the guy be racist. I don't care. That's probably what it is. That's probably the great equalizer is you want more shekels in your pocket. And I don't even blame you. So I don't know. Um,
Yeah, no, well, it's quite, yeah, and there are that many millions of people that are 70 some million people that are awake to what's going on in terms of
yeah,
the cultural stuff and everything. So they need somebody to rally behind. The question is, after Trump, who is that going to be? I don't know.
correct. Yeah.
JD Vance? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, and I just kind of made the point to myself, the biggest changes in your life come from yourself, not a political leader. Well, what are the biggest changes in your life? Your hard work, your ability to budget, well, if somebody puts more money in your pocket, that kind of gives you more of an ability to affect the outcome of your own life. So I think
Sure.
that's what it is. I think that's kind of the silver bullet. Everything else, I mean, truly, sure, the war in Ukraine is bad. Is it really affecting my life? The reality is absolutely not. Whether we send HIMARS or
Right.
don't. The reality is I track the dollars every month, and if I have more, hey man, I'm probably gonna vote for that guy. It's really not that hard. Um, but yeah, for right
Mhm.
now, let's wrap this up, guys. If you go in the description, go grab his book. You get also the link to your Substacks in there. I'll email you this. I think we should schedule another and kind of come back to this in a month or two and see how much has shifted.
Sure. Sure. Sounds good.
All right, man. As always, dude, thank you for your time. Mr. John Jeffries, guys, please go in the description. Please go grab his book. Please go to his Substack, all that good shit. You're cool, dude. Thank you so much for your time.
I appreciate you having. Thanks.
All right, brother. Guys,